and welcome to my channel, Not the Usual Tech Guy. Today we'll be going through the installation for Gotify on Docker. I've personally not seen any tutorials for Gotify Docker setup, and maybe someone out there is looking for one. If you have clicked on this video, it is likely that you already know what Gotify does. It is a push notification app, and the way it works is well explained in the diagram, which is available on gotify.net, and it gives us a high-level overview on how this service works. So the applications will be what you are monitoring. They will talk to the Gotify instance using an API key and will send notifications to the client depending on when you want it to be triggered. So let's look at my Gotify, current Gotify instance in my home lab to get a feel for how the application looks before you install it. So this is my current installation that I'm running in my home lab, and as you can see that I already have some alerts that are currently showing up. It shows that some of my services are up and running and some are currently not running. So this is coming from my application that is called Uptime Kuma. So Uptime Kuma is connected with an API key, and it talks to Gotify through that API key. And I've also set it up on my OpenSense router too to get notifications about the status of who connects to my network. So this is just a quick overview before we do an install. So some prerequisites is that I will be using Nginx Proxy Manager to use the reverse proxy to host my Gotify instance. In case if you don't know what Nginx Proxy Manager is, or if you have not installed it and you want to know how to install it, there are quite a few tutorials out there, and you can go ahead and check them out. In case if you want me to cover that up, then just let me know in the comments, and I can do a future video showing you how to install Nginx Proxy Manager. And this will be set up on an Ubuntu machine, which I'm currently running on Proxmox. So yeah, so let's just go and start the setup. I'm currently connected to my Ubuntu machine via SSH, and I'm using this terminal called Tabby. It's an open source, freely available terminal for download, and I would definitely recommend that you should give it a try. So as this is a new machine that I've set up in order to install Gotify, I would need Docker. So I'm just going to quickly install Docker. This is the curl command that will download and install Docker on our system by running a script. So I'll just do this and press enter. And you can see it is executing a script. We just have to wait for it to complete. Okay, so once it's completed, you will see something like this, because it does run the command checking for the Docker version. It should say that it is currently installed. Just clear this. Now you can type in Docker version and you will see this. And if there are any containers that you would like to see, you could also type in Docker PS and you will see the container showing up. Sometimes as when you add this, your user would not be a part of the Docker group. So in order to make sure that your user is a part of the Docker group, you just have to put in the following command. So what it says is it's sudo usermod, which is a command, and -a, which ensures that the user is added to the group and without removing that user from any other groups. and G is for is the option that specifies which group is going to be added. So in this case, it will be added to the Docker group, and the user is for the user that you're currently a part of. So if you do that and press enter, what it will do is it will add your user, and you no longer have to type in sudo, or otherwise you will always have to type sudo whenever you run any Docker command. So sometimes even after doing this, you might see that it is permission denied. For that, you just have to exit and reconnect your SSH session, and that will update the permissions for that user. We also need to download Docker Compose. By default, Docker Compose 1 would not be added when you install Docker. So in order to do that, you just have to type in sudo apt install Docker Compose, press enter, perfect. So once you have this, Docker Compose is needed when we are executing the YAML files. Let's just create a folder for Gotify so that we can add the Docker Compose file in that folder. I like to add my files in the /opt directory. So let's just cd into it, cd/opt. I've created a folder called Docker where I put all my Docker files, and here we'll create a file for Gotify. So sudo mkdir Gotify, press enter, then cd into Gotify folder. Here we'll need to now create a Docker Compose file. So in order to do that, it will be sudo nano docker compose.yml and hit enter. And in this editor, you will need to paste the following code. You'll find that code in my GitHub page below. And let's go through the basics of what this file does, as it's always good to have an idea. So the YAML files are not too hard to understand. So here it's stating that we are requesting for a service called Gotify, and we want the latest image. If the latest image does not work for you, then you can change it from latest to a specific ARM version. So for my Raspberry Pi, I could usually add this ARM64, and this should download the ARM specific version for my for Gotify. And it's always good to give a container name, because otherwise Docker would end up giving a random generated name. There are two ways to expose ports on, or two ways to add ports. One is to expose it internally, which is what you see here, even though it says expose, but it is only exposing the port internally. That means internally to the Docker network. And this does not give access to external exposure, and what that means is it will not allow me to access this particular service to my IP address. In order to get it externally, there is what you can do is you can just make sure there is proper spacing. It's very important, and you could just add something called ports, and then the left side is what is exposed externally. So this is what you will be using with your IP address, and you can change this port to whatever you like, but make sure it does not overlap with any other services. So we can just give it, let's say, 8,900, and the right side is where the service exposes the port inside the container. So this cannot be changed and has to be what the developer has specified. So in this case, it is port 80. So Gotify serves within the container port 80, and on the Docker container, all the communication will go through port 8900. So I'll just comment this out for now. And as far as volumes are concerned, volume specifies the data. So same as with the ports, the left side data is saved on your system as a persistent volume. So this one saves as a persistent volume, and the dot states that it will put the data in the folder that you are in currently. So that's in the Gotify folder. It will create a folder for Gotify_data. And on the right side, the /app/data that you see here is what will be in the container. There will be a directory that will be stated. So anything that gets saved in app/data will also be saved under Gotify data. So this is good to be having a persistent volume on the system. So just in case if you have to remove the app, then you can rebuild it and you will still be able to have that same data that you had before. And the next one is the restart policy. Always make sure it's unless stopped or all set to always. What this does is whenever you restart your system, it will restart the app. And then the networks is currently set for Nginx default. As mentioned earlier, I'll be setting this up on Nginx, so I'll be putting it under the Nginx network that is created in Docker. And yeah, so that's the Docker file. I'll just exit out of here. So in order to do that, is Control X, and then it will say if you do want to save it. So you do yes, and then press Enter. Yeah, so that's saved now. If you want to just double check, you can press ls and you'll see the docker-compose.yaml file. And in order to deploy Gotify through the Docker Compose file, you just have to type in docker-compose up-d. And what this will do is this will download Gotify on your system and will install it. So I'll just press enter. Have to wait for it to pull. Perfect. It's now creating Gotify, and there you go, it's done. In order to check for logs to see if there is any error or if the application is deployed successfully, you can type in docker logs-f and the container name. Okay, press enter. So you can see that starting Gotify, and then it is currently listening on port 80. So this is the container port, and as we saw earlier, it's going to 8900, exposing on 8900. So let's just go to a web browser and see how it's done there. Before we add Gotify to Nginx, it's always good to check if we can access Gotify service via the IP address and port that we mentioned earlier. So just type in your system's IP address where this container is based. In my case, it is 10.1.5.209, and then we need to add the port number. So double dots and then 8900 in my case, and then I'll hit enter. And there you go. It brings up the Gotify GUI. So the default username and password is admin, and you just press enter. Make sure you are changing the default admin user that is already set up. So in order to do that, you would need to click on users, and you will notice that there is already a user showing up that we logged in as. So just click on create user and create your user here. So I'll just create that and make sure you're setting up a nice and secure password, and enable this because you want to give this user as the administrator rights, and then create. And now you can just delete the other user. So there you go, you're logged out. Now you can just log back in with your new user. Before we add apps and clients on Gotify, I will go ahead and add the service behind a reverse proxy. In my case, I'm using Nginx Proxy Manager, and as mentioned earlier, there are quite a few tutorials out there on how to set Nginx up. If you want me to do a tutorial on it, then please let me know in the comment section and I will do that in future. This is my Nginx proxy instance, and I will start by adding the Gotify service as on my Nginx proxy. So click here, and the first thing it will ask for domain names. So this is probably where you will enter your Gotify subdomain. So it will be connected to your main domain. So I own this domain ndutg.com. So and this is my subdomain. So it's connected to that. Just have to click on add, make sure you do that, and under scheme leave it at HTTP. I'll show you with the IP address now, and then once we are done, we will go back and change the Docker Compose file to just show it with the container name and without exposing ports externally. So the IP address is 10.1.5.209, and the forward port will be the port that we are exposing externally at the moment, so that will be 8900. And make sure you just cache assets, block common exploits, WebSocket support, and click on SSL certificate. Again, as I mentioned, this is all done when you do a setup of your Nginx Proxy Manager. So yeah, force SSL and then select this one too, and then hit save. Right, so now you will notice that this instance is up here. So I'll just click on Gotify, and there you go. It has brought up my Gotify instance. I'll just double check by logging in. And yes, so it lets me log in. So what we'll now do is we'll quickly go to our Docker Compose file, edit the file there so that it doesn't expose the ports externally, and then we will do the setup here. Let's close these instances, go to my Compose file, so that's sudo nano post, let's enter password. Okay, this time I'll comment these out. You can even delete or remove it. And so the expose port should always match the port that is on the right, because it is just going to expose this port within the container network, and it's not exposing it externally. So once you do that, you won't be able to access this via an IP address. Just remember that. So this is good if you have a reverse proxy that is set up. So in this case, I have set this up under my Nginx, and you need to be also on the same network as your Nginx reverse proxy. So just in order to save it, Control X, then Y, and enter. And we need to restart or redeploy this whole thing because we've just updated the Docker Compose file. So in order to do that is Docker -compose up-d, but this time I'll be trying to force recreate. So this will, what it will do is we'll destroy the old Gotify instance and it will recreate that instance. So as we mentioned about the persistent volume earlier, it will have the same data, so we don't have to recreate the admin user. Just the instance is going to be recreated. So I'll just press enter. There you go, it's recreating Gotify and it's done. Now what we'll do is we'll go back to our Nginx, and if you notice now, if I hit this, it will not take me to my Gotify instance because it is currently set up to the port that was externally being displayed, but we no longer have that port externally showing up. So we now need to change it because it no longer serves on the IP address. So we'll just put the container name. So that's why the container name is also important. So we put the container name, and instead of port 8900, we will just put to the container port that is currently exposing within the container network. So just hit save. Now if we hit this here, there you go, it brings us right back in. So now that we are on this page, what we'll do is we will look at how to set up the apps and the clients. I'll just show you why my uptime Kuma setup that I currently have, and we'll go from there. Let's just now go ahead and add some applications so that Gotify can then send us notifications for those applications. So in order to do that, you just have to go to apps and then create application, and you can give it any name. In this case, I am going to use Uptime Kuma. It's a monitoring tool which I'll just show you, and I'll just add that name, Uptime Kuma, short description, monitoring tool, create, and you will notice that it has created a token as well, and we will see when we'll need that token. So let's go to my Uptime Kuma instance and see how that's set up. Okay, so this is my Uptime Kuma instance, and you can see that there are different applications and my server and other IoT devices at home that I'm currently monitoring. There are different ways that you can monitor your service on Uptime Kuma. The way I am doing it for this device is using ping, and the way what it does is it will send the ping every like in this case every 20 seconds to see if this service is currently active, and if it's not, then it will show up in red. But we don't have a way to always access this and keep monitoring it ourselves. It would be great if it notifies us the moment the application is offline. So that's where Gotify comes in, and the way we do it here is we click edit and then set up notification. Here you need to just search for Gotify. It's so awesome that they have so many different notification apps. Choose Gotify alert me, and then it's asking for an application token. And if you remember, there is a token that was created under Gotify. So all you have to do is just copy it and then just paste it here, It's also asking for a server URL, so that will be the URL that was created earlier through Nginx. So just copy that. Perfect. And then you can hit test to make sure that this is working. So I'll just press test, and you will see that it is sent this successfully. So we go to our Gotify instance and click on Uptime Kuma, and there you go. It says Gotify alert me testing. So the communication between my Uptime Kuma and Gotify is successfully established via the API token. Now I'll just hit save, and then you just need to make sure you hit save here. Perfect. Now what I'll do is I will just go ahead and put my tablet offline, and soon it should come up here with red. I believe it starts with checking as yellow or orange, and then it goes to red. So we'll just wait for that, and once it does that, it will send a notification to our Gotify service, and that's how we will be notified that, hey, this device is currently offline. Got the pending one. Alright, so there you go. It's showing red, and as you can see here, it is also giving me the details that, hey, Uptime Kuma here, Galaxy is down and it's tried to ping, and this many packets were sent. It's just so cool. So it gives you a bit of detail as well, and I'm sure it will be helpful in different instances of your server or different networks that you have set up in your home environment. So yeah, next I'll just show you how to set it up on your phone. So when you're out and about and you just want to make sure that all your services are running as well, it will end up sending notifications to you. And this is so cool that it's all free. Also, if you want to learn more about how to set up Uptime Kuma, just let me know in the comments section below, and then in future I can create a tutorial for this as well. Okay. Now on your phone, you just have to click on Play Store and search for Gotify. So I've already searched for it, and it comes up with the Gotify app that I can install. Let's hit install. And once it's installed, just click open, and then type in the Gotify URL. So HTTPS gotify.com. Check URL, and we'll ask you for the username and password. Just enter the username and password that you created. Okay, once you've done that, it will ask you for your client name. You can change it if you want to, but in my case I'll leave it as is. So it's hit create. The client created. Then click allow, and there you go. You can now see the same notifications that we can see it on our web browser. So now you have an application that will notify you whenever a service is down, or if there are of the services, if they are up and running. It's a pretty simple app as well. So if you click on this, you will also see the basic details. There's not much into settings. It's just you can change the theme, the message layout, the time format, and the other details. You can also have, if you have multiple notification services, then it will come up with other names as well. So in this case, I have Uptime Kuma, and if you have other servers, you can name them accordingly. So yeah, so that's the app. And if we come back to our Gotify web browser, if you notice under clients, it has given access to the mobile device, and again it has created a token. So the way Gotify is communicating with the app on the phone is via this token. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section on what services you are planning to set this up for. If there are any questions or suggestions on how I can improve on my setup, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching it till the end. Have a nice day.